Oh, hey, just before the video begins, I needed to offer a quick side note because I understand that many people may not know what DRM is. So, straight from Wikipedia, digital rights management, DRM schemes, are various access control technologies that are used to restrict the usage of proprietary hardware and copyrighted works. So, there you go. Alright, let's get started. Alright, this is a video I've been wanting to make for a while now, but never really did. Really, I want to do a lot of videos, but for one reason or another, I'm honestly just too lazy. Doing YouTube is something I do for fun, and because of that, it isn't too high up on my priority list. But probably around 2 months ago at this point, something started to change. I was at a flea market. As you do when you're at a flea market, I was buying things. For me, it's mostly music and video games. I got 2 albums and 3 PlayStation games. That was pretty much all that looked good to me. But then on my way out, I saw a table. Everything on that table was $1. And on that table was a copy of Far Cry 2 and Fear with all its expansion packs, both in boxes, both with activation keys. A few weeks passed by and I was pretty happy with the PlayStation games and the music. Up to this point, I hadn't really attempted to install the PC games because I really had just been too lazy. I put the discs in and walked through the installer. Everything seemed okay. I think one of them even let me put in the activation key. But then I get to another screen, one I can't get past, telling me I need to activate the product courtesy of SecuROM. But I can't activate it. See, SecuROM is insecure. So insecure, as a matter of fact, that it's blocked from running by Windows 10. And even if I could activate it, what are the chances of authentication servers from around a decade being live to allow me to? And even if I could authenticate it, what are the chances that the previous owner used up all the activation keys and now it won't activate for me? Add all these things up and you can see why there would be a problem. Now granted, there are numerous and easy ways you can bypass SecuROM, and sooner or later that's what I'll most likely end up doing, but not all games are going to be that lucky. And that's not to say DRM can't be cracked, just to say that the game may be too small for anyone to care. What's going to happen to collecting? What's going to happen to owning the product you purchase? You're being sold games and media by companies with a fundamental misunderstanding of how ownership works. When you buy something, it should be yours to have and modify forever, unless you decide to sell it. And whoever buys it should have those same rights. After all, they bought it from you, so it's now their software. But in a lot of situations, that's just not the case. Some people forget to deactivate something. It's not hard to do. Sometimes they deliberately don't. Is that to say it's the buyer who's at fault? That they should be punished for buying used, for saving money? Imagine this with literally anything other than computer software, and it quickly becomes completely ridiculous. A man buys a car. The car is special because it has an activation key that prevents car theft. If the car is stolen, the wheels won't turn. It doesn't work that well, though. The car thieves figured out how to crack it within about 3 days of the car's release. Now it comes time for the man to sell the car. The buyer calls the dealer to reactivate the car, but the dealer closed their doors about a year ago. What's he going to do? Well, it's his fault for buying used. And digital distribution's even worse. Now don't get me wrong, I do enjoy the convenience, and gaming primarily on PC, there's essentially no way for me to avoid it, but it does have its downfalls, and they're massive. You don't even own a copy of the game you bought anymore. You can't sell games, you can't rent them, you'll be lucky to even have the privilege of returning them. And let me ask you a question. How long do you think your hard drive's gonna last? I have a stack of Master System games from 30 years ago, and they all work fine. I have a stack of PlayStation discs from 20 years ago, and they all work fine. The PlayStation's another story, but thanks to replacement parts, it should be okay. You can't repair a hard drive, though. Even if you somehow miraculously through data backups get all your data to survive for years with you, what are the chances of your games working? Some of them are tied to your motherboard. You must have changed that. Some of them require periodic online verification. GTA 5 does. It's pretty popular now, but what are you going to do when it's not? When the servers aren't online for you anymore? It would be foolish to think that services like Steam and the PlayStation Store will be on forever. Remember OnLive from a few years ago? How about the Wii Shop channel? What are you going to do when your Wii fails? How will you re-download all those virtual console titles which also happen to be locked to your specific Wii? That may have been a bit of a tangent, but my point remains. DRM isn't really doing anything to stop piracy, and I'd even argue that it's completely pointless. Pirates just crack it, most of the time in a matter of days, eliminating the problem. Then it's just the legitimate consumers who are left with the product that offers a worse experience. To me, that sounds just a little bit backwards. DRM, in my opinion, doesn't really do anything except facilitate anti-consumer practices. In a different light, though, I guess partially because I enjoy playing devil's advocate, it's understandable why companies would choose to include DRM with their games. On paper, it sounds like a good idea, since it does conceptually protect their games. It keeps investors happy, knowing that at least some efforts were made to stop piracy. And I suppose, now more than ever, since game development costs are getting so high, making sure you take all the necessary measures to maximize revenue is pretty important. If a AAA game doesn't sell, the developer could be out millions of dollars. But returning to my main point, I find myself asking the question, are those the correct measures to take? My case in point, The Witcher 3.
Whatever we do, the game will be pirated, whether it's DRM free or it has DRM. And if you look at it in a very simple way, putting the DRM on the game just makes the life of the legal gamer more difficult. So the guys who really trusted us and went out and bought the game, they have a more difficult life than the guys who didn't bother and pirated the game. Well, I really think it should be the other way around. Unfortunately, we cannot make it happen. So we decided that it should be all DRM free, equal for everyone, and we strongly believe that this kind of approach will encourage people to go and buy the game, trust us because we trust them, and it will make the gaming experience without obstacles.
CD Projekt Red, developer of Witcher 3, has taken a sort of different approach. Rather than incorporating DRM into their game, they go on the basis of trust, understanding that some people will inevitably pirate the game, whether there is DRM or not. Understanding that having DRM may make things more difficult for the people that actually bought the game. And this is really interesting to me. I'd certainly be open to seeing more companies try this approach. This seems to be extremely pro-consumer. Now, admittedly, it does have its flaws, given that people will still pirate the game, and in that respect, I guess the strategy fails. But then again, so does every other anti-piracy measure. Personally, I think the adoption of more pro-consumer practices can help slow down piracy. Maybe we ought to bring back shareware demos, and just make demos more common overall. Make it easier for people to return digitally bought items. I'm sure people would be more inclined to spend money if they knew what they were spending it on was a fun experience for them. And maybe take those microtransactions down a notch. Especially you, EA. Especially you. And I guess the only thing I can say for certain is, without a doubt, I hate DRM. Alright, if you stuck around this long, I guess you deserve a thank you. So thank you. I know this video isn't really something normal for my channel, but then again, my videos are about as consistent as cottage cheese. This is just something I felt like talking about and maybe dropping my opinion. At the end of the day, that's all this is, my opinion. I'll be the first one to say I didn't do much research outside of what I was obligated to do and wrote this in 1 or 2 sittings. Feel free to drop your opinions in the comments section, and of course I'm open to criticism too if you want to use it for that. If you like the video, feel free to like it. I guess the dislike works well too. Maybe subscribe. If my upload schedule is any indicator, I'll hit you with another video in about 4 to 6 months. Anyway, that about wraps it up. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.